There are 5 major components to the Clark-Wilson model. First is the user. The user is the subject. That is the entity that is desirous of the information contained in the object. So the user is the active agent that needs the information. Then there are transformational procedures. Now this is the process that is accessing or manipulating the information. Accessing could be read or write, and the manipulation is a modification of the information. So these transformational procedures can either be run through or be performed on constrained data items or unconstrained data items. So constrained data items would be items that are closely controlled, therefore constrained, and can only be manipulated by these transformational procedures. In other words, these well-formed transactions. And this will help ensure that those constrained data items will have a higher level of integrity. Now, the unconstrained data items, in addition to being modifiable by these transformational procedures, can also be directly manipulated by the user. In other words, it's not so tightly controlled. So the unconstrained data items have a lesser level of integrity than a constrained data item. And then to further ensure the integrity of the information, we have IVPs, or integrity verification procedures, that act along with the transformation procedures on constrained data items. So the more secure route is the transformational procedure on constrained data items, followed up by an audit trail, if you will, of integrity verification procedures on those constrained data items. The ones that have lesser level of integrity are the unconstrained data items that the user can actually manipulate directly. And this model identifies the components of the Clark-Wilson model. In this diagram, it shows the user directly modifying the unconstrained data items, and the user can only modify constrained data items through these well-formed transformational procedures or transactions, and they too are audited by these integrity verification procedures. These are components of the program that we described earlier, the application that is used to store, secure, and modify or process the information. So again, Clark-Wilson is based on this access triple principle, that a subject must use a program to access and modify an object. So that's the 3 pieces of the triple. The subject uses a program to modify an object. Subject, program, and object. Those are the 3 pieces of the access triple. You need to know the access triple. Further, it also requires the separation of duties, which again reduces or minimizes the opportunity for fraud, and again recognizes that we're going to be accessing the data through programs, and follows up with an audit trail to verify the integrity of the information. The Clark-Wilson model has 3 integrity goals as well. And if you think these through, you'll say, yep, they make sense. So it's kind of like you don't need to memorize these because they make sense. The first integrity goal says if we have an unauthorized user, we have to prevent him from making any modifications. Unauthorized users cannot make modifications. Rule number 1. Rule number 2 says I have to ensure internal and external consistency. Again, internal consistency says that a program that is adding numbers adds them correctly. And if it's multiplying numbers, it multiplies them correctly. That's internal consistency. External consistency has more to do with data input. That says if Bobo sells 10 widgets, he writes down that he sold 10 widgets. He doesn't write down that he sold 5 widgets and then pockets the money for the other 5. He sells 10 widgets, he inputs that he sold 10 widgets. That's external consistency. So Rule 2 says internal and external consistency is maintained. And Rule number 3 says if I have an authorized user that is going to be making changes to the data, he is not allowed to make improper changes to the data. In other words, an authorized guy can't cook the books. Even if he's allowed to be in there, he still has to input data correctly. So authorized users cannot make improper modifications. That's rule number 3. You need to know these 3 rules.